First, we assume that the student already has the basic of standing on Zenkutsu-dachi. So now, it's a matter of teaching the student to rotate the hips on the stance. Conceptually, there are a few things to keep in mind. Ensure correct stance structure. Ensure no change of feet position. Ensure the hips does not roll or pitch but only yaws. Ensure there is no change of height. And ensure the knee of the leading leg or lead knee does not change position, whether forward and back or side to side. Locking the height and the lead knee mechanically means that 1. The pivot point of the rotation is the hip of the leading leg or lead hip for short. 2. Straightening the back leg pushes the hip of the rear leg or rear hip forward on the same horizontal plane. In other words, without moving vertically up or down, hence rotating the hips forward. And 3. Bending the back leg pulls the rear hip backwards, also on the same horizontal plane, hence rotating the hips back. Conceptually, this only explains the mechanics of the technique. It does not teach the student how to coordinate in such manner. No matter how many times an instructor repeats these criteria to the student's body will not understand how to do it until the student has physically learned to do so. This brings us back to the concept of the two understanding, as explained in the previous video. When it comes to the mind understanding, you must first conceptually understand the technique in order to know how to train it. But when it comes to the body understanding, ironically, you must first be able to perform the technique in order to physically understand it. Next is where the range of intuitive control, also from the previous video, comes into play. We have to break apart the single move into two separate training with a single localized degree of freedom in each training, then train to combine them. The first training is extension. For this, we ignore the locking of the lead knee. Stand on the stance with the rear knee bent, then straighten the rear leg with force, allowing the upper body to be pushed forward and up. The second training is rotation. Here we ignore the locking of the height. Stand on the stance with the rear leg straightened, then rotate the hips forward and back slowly. Sometimes you would need to force this motion onto the student yourself by holding onto the belt and rotating their hips for them. Train this repeatedly until the student have intuitive control over this move. In this training, the location of the pivot point is ignored. The third training is combine with height lock. This combines the moves from the first two trainings to be performed simultaneously. Mechanically, when done correctly, combining the two will result in locking the height. Despite this, most likely you would need to force the height in place by pressing down on the head or shoulders. The front knee may wobble side to side or slide front and back at first. But to repeat again, when learning a new technique that is beyond the range of intuitive control of the practitioner, having to focus on more than one thing is too much for the practitioner. So for now, allow it to happen. Train this repeatedly and slow until it comes naturally. Then repeat with speed and eventually with force. Achieving this, the student would have expanded his or her range of intuitive control. The last training is the complete component. Now that the student has intuitive control over combined with height lock, the student has just one more new thing to focus on. That is the knee lock. There is no further tips or tricks to this apart from practicing until proficient. Staring at your own knee in front of the mirror would be helpful. By locking both height and lead knee, you will essentially be also locking the position of your lead hip, making that the pivot point of the rotation. This completes the training of the second component. The teaching and training of the first component, the straight punch or chokuzugi, was briefly demonstrated in the previous video, but there will be another separate video on this on its own. Thank you for watching. Initially, I actually planned to include on how to combine the two components in this video itself, but I've decided that it is worth a video title on its own as my next video. So this is the end of this video, and do look forward for that video coming soon. This is a Karate Zad video. I am Sensei Zad. If you find this video useful or interesting in any way, please like, share, and subscribe or follow. As my sensei often say, what I share with you is 100% yours. There's nothing I can do to take it back. It's just a matter of whether you implement it or forget it. If you have any suggestions, questions, or anything to say, do comment. But remember to remain polite and civil in the comment section.